by Lebanon, by Hezbollah. Okay, Zok Tehillah Gemara. The last line on Daf Nunvav Mid Beis was Shloisha Achim ve'echad mitztar fimoin harei elu shloisha edios v'hein edus achas lazama. We know two brothers. Thank you very much. Cannot say one edus, and the mechanics of how it's considered is that all three brothers are considered one person. But the problem here is now you have an edus of chazaka that's being fulfilled through three brothers. So how is that a good edus? Elamai, what it must be is that the edus for each year of the chazaka must be a separate edus. So for year one, it was brother one and Chaim together, and for year two, it was brother two and Chaim together, and for year three, it was brother three and Chaim together. But we don't have two brothers saying one edus because each of the years get separated. However, the Gabay Azama, they're edus achas. That's what our Mishnah taught us. So Zok to Gemara, Hahush Torah, Dahava Chasima Alayu, Dahava Chasima Alay, Beitrei, there were two edim on the star, which is very typical. And Shachiv Chad Minayu, one of the edim died. Now, normally, if you need to be Mekayim a star, and there's two edim on the star, and those two edim are still available, those two edim will come to Bezdin and will say that this star that we signed is completely legitimate, and this is our signature. But what would happen if one of the edim would die? So the first aid could still come and verify his signature and verify what he saw to sign that star. But what about the second signature? So they would have to be Mekayim it independently through other people who recognize this signature of being that of the aid. Could the first aid be one of those two aid? Can the first aid be one of those two aid? Yes, this is my friend's signature, I recognize it. And then Chaim would come along and say, I recognize the signature as well. The halacha is no. Why is the halacha no? Because there's a halacha of al pishnayim edim yokum davar, which means that everything has to happen through two edim. And if we dig down deeper, what it means is the namanis, or whatever it is that these edim are trying to accomplish, the weight of the edim has to rest equally on each of the two edim, which means each aid could only be responsible for 50% of whatever this edus is about. In our case, we're talking about a star that Reuven's Oshim in $100,000. Well, if one aid is being Mekayim his own chasima, and he's also one of the two eidim that are Mekayim the other aid's chasima, so now 75% of the namonus of this star is based on that live surviving aid. And that is not al pishnayim edim yokum davar, because the weight of the namonus of the star is not split 50-50 between the two edim. So here we had a case where there were two edim and one died, and also achua the high, the koi, the charachwina la sude achasim shadei the idach. Instead of the surviving aid being one of the two edim that were Mekayim, the chasima of the aid that was deceased, the brother of the aid that was still alive, he was one of the two edim to be Mekayim, the chasima of the deceased aid. So Sava Ravina Lamemar, Ravina thought to say, Hainu Masnisin. It should be allowed, just like in our Mishnah, it says, Gimel Achin, the Echad Mitztar Fimaim, it would be good. And if we go down to the Rashbam explains exactly how it works. Hainu Masnisin, the Afagav, the Shnei Achin Tsun Le'edus Achas, even though we can all agree that two brothers are possible for one edus, the loy chashivi elo kichad, they're only considered like one eight. Afilochi machshir lehu masnisin l'shloisha achim. The Mishnah allows three edim to be part of this edus of chazaka, be'edus karka echad, me'achar she'in zeh meid al ois shana shezeh meid. Each year split up, And for each year, we do not have two brothers. So if that's the case, Afkan, let's say, that's one edus. The Achiv al Chasim Shanameis, which is a second edus. And therefore it should be allowed. And on that, Rav Ashi Mizmagia, no, Midami, you cannot compare the two. Because we still have this principle that you can never rely on the namanos of one of the two more than the other. It has to be, the namanos of the star has to be weighted equally 50-50 to each of the two edim. Hasam, in our Mishnah, le'nafik nachi river de mamana apuma de achi. In our case, we're not going to say that nachi river means 100 minus a quarter, which is 75%. We don't have 75% of the namanas on the brothers, because you have, if each brother says on 1 year, like in our Mishnah, and he has another 8, well, even if all those 3 brothers were the same person, they're only 50% of the namanas for each of those 3 years. The other 8, Chaim, let's say, was the other namanas. So it's still 50-50. But in the case of Ravina Shtar, Pacha, Nafik, Nachi, River, the Mamana, Apumada. Here what's happening is 3/4 of the namanas is based on the brother's testimony. We look at 2 brothers like they're the same person. So it's just as if this person was made on his own chasima and was also made on the chasima of the other 8. Now he's 100% responsible for his testimony, but he's 50% responsible for the testimony of the other 8, which means we're relying on him 75%. That's not acceptable. Zok the Gemara weiter. Zok the Heilige Mishnah. Let me give you a list of things that would be considered a cheskas gimel shonim. These are things that someone would normally not allow a stranger to do in his property. And the fact that someone is doing these things in his property for 3 years is proof, in fact, that the property was sold with a proper shtar. This is how the Rashbam learns this Mishnah. In other words, we're changing back to the original subject, because in the last Mishnah, we changed from the chazaka of Raya to the chazaka of Kinyan. And now we're going back to chazaka of Raya. However, the Rashbam brings a sheet of the Rach that no, we're sticking still to the chazaka of Kinyan. And the Mishnah is going to be discussing the chazaka of Kinyan, which the Rashbam doesn't like. And we'll see in a minute why, but we'll also see why the Rach might have learned otherwise. So, if you put a behema in the chotzer, so we're talking about 2 batim, 2 houses that share a chotzer, and at this point, the Gemara thinks a total stranger brought a behema and parked it in the chotzer. So that should show that he's owner, and therefore it's a raya that he bought it. The Rach learns that is a manifestation of ownership with which you're cutting the property. The Rashbam doesn't like that, because by being maimed a behem in the chotzer, how are you improving the chotzer? If you remember, we learned the chazak of Kinyan, you have to be improving the chotzer. Putting a behem in the chotzer is not improving. Anyway, hayamaimed behema b'chotzer, or a tanner rechayim v'kirayim, or a mobile tanner, a mobile mill, or a mobile stove, or if megadol tanagoylim, if you're raising chickens, or v'noisin zvola, or you store your manure b'chotzer, ain't a chazaka. None of these things would be a chazaka. Again, according to Rashbam, if it doesn't prove that you own it, and according to the Rach, it's not a manifestation of ownership. It's not a king. Avo also mechitza lebehemtoi. What if you partitioned off a section of the chotzer, and that's where you kept your behema? So now you did something to the actual karka. You built a mechitza. Gavoya asar tefachim, that was high 10 tefachim. V'chein l'tana, v'chein l'kirayim, v'chein l'rechayim. You built a little enclosure in the chotzer for yourself. Or hechnis tanagoyim l'soich habayis. Or you took chickens into the house. The also mokem l'zavla, and you made a place for zevel. Omok shloisha, either 3 tefachim deep, you dug a little hole. Or gavoya shloisha, or you raised some type of platform for the manure. Harezu chazaka, these would all be a chazaka. Again, according to the Rashbam, a chazaka of Raya, if you did this for 3 years, that you purchased it, and according to the Rach, it's an actual kinyan. What's the difference if you have chickens running all around the house and you made a wall, or if you didn't make a wall? If you have manure piled up, what's the difference if you have a wall or not? Why would that make a difference? Kol she'ilu b'nichsi ager kana b'nichsi chaveroi kana. Kol she'ilu b'nichsi ager loy kana b'nichsi chaveroi loy kana. As you can see, this is so noita towards the Rach, because the Rach clearly says we're talking about kinyanim. The Rashbam learns whatever is a kinyan by nichsi ager, which shows a manifestation of ownership, such a manifestation of ownership also doesn't create a kinyan with nichsi chaveroi, but it also shows that you own it, and it can be used as a raya, but not necessarily as a kinyan. Let's have a look at the Rashbam inside, because here where the Rashbam sort of has to defend his pshat against the Rach, as it seems to be talking about kinyan. Zog to Gemara, Omar Ula, Kol Chazaka Ru'ua, every Shvacha Chazaka, the Loikana in Bola Soise Benichsager Leknoiso Miyad. It wouldn't be a kinyan to actually be koina karka from the Nichsager. Uadin, therefore we're also applying it le'inyan koina karka b'chaveoi v'amar le chazeku kni. If his friend told him, go make a kinyan, v'halach v'hechzik chazaka ru'ud loikan. So when we say nichsager, it just means it's not good for a kinyan. Any type of chazaka that wouldn't be good for a kinyan, kagoin hamod asham behemtoy, just putting your behem in the chutz, or just putting your oven or stove in the chutzner, the ain't no the godar. This is not on the level of no the godar like we learned is a good kinyan chazaka. The loyasa shom tikun to kark. You haven't improved the kark at all. You bringing your accessories there, and showing that you live there. That doesn't create a kinyan. A kinyan has to be improving the kark. So therefore, b'nichsa chaver nami koina loikana kloimar. Therefore, le'inyan cheska shaloshanim of raya. It wouldn't be a raya because you didn't do anything. Digging in a property or building a wall, that will be a kinyan chazaka sai for nichse ager. And sai if you're buying a property from a third party, the nichse ager namikana kloimar. How the chazaka would also be a chazaka of raya. Umiyu, as the Rashbam holds, the actual kinyan is not done through this. This is just being used for the raya. Umiyu akinyan al yedei mois oy matanoi. Umiyu. However, hiknis tana goyel l'soich abayis the katani seifa that the chazaka b'nichse kama b'nichse ager lo have a chazaka. You can't be kinyan nichse ager by bringing chickens into your house. Building some type of wall, that's doime to Rafik Baporta, as the Rashbam said earlier. But bringing chickens into your house, that is not a chazaka at all, l'gabi kinyan. But our Mishnah says l'gabi raya, it still is a chazaka. Okay, let's stop and let's go on. Shazok tehei Gemara. This teretz isn't perfect. In fact, Rav Sheshes eliminates. Maskif law Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes does not like this svara b'ula. Uchalolahu, are you telling me that it's exactly parallel? Whatever is a kinyan chazaka is a raya of chazaka? I'll actually prove to you that that's not true. The Rashbam just pointed out a moment ago, Minei Ubei the Mishnah, it's not true because bringing chickens into your house is not a chazaka to be kaina. Yet our Mishnah still says it is a chazaka for a raya. But Rav Sheshes asks from another case. Very near. Near means plowing a field. If you just plow a field, the nichse ager kana, you're kind of by nichse ager because that's definitely an improvement to the karka, right? We even learned that you only have to go back and forth once to make the kinyan yesterday, according to the Rashbam. So plowing is for sure kinyan. Yet the nichse chaver like kana. But if you do that in your friend's field for 3 years, you were not showing top proof because no one's going to be moicha. If you want to do me a favor and plow my field, go ahead. So you see the rule is not consistent. What about achilas pears? Eating the pears of a field. If you eat pears for 3 years, that's very much a chazaka. That's the classic case of chazaka. Yet eating pears of the field does not create a kinyan. It's only if you improve the field. So you see this whole rule that Ula suggested simply doesn't hold out. We're not talking about a stranger who parked himself in a field and did one of these things. That's not what we're discussing at all. Rather, we're actually talking about a chatzar of shutfin. Zokta heliger Rashbam, she'echad min hashutfin atzmoi hamid behemoisav v'tanur v'ashbishaloi v'chatzar gimel shanim v'loi michu. We're talking about 2 shutfim in a chatzar. We both have houses in this chatzar, and one of us decided to abuse our privilege and do these weird things. So the question is, if he did it for 3 years, is it an indication that he had made an arrangement with his partner, with his neighbor, to be able to do these things? Maybe he paid him off. Maybe he was mafayis. But is there a raya from the fact that he was there for 3 years and his partner wasn't moicha? Is that a raya that there was actually an arrangement made to give him the right to do that? Ustam chotzer lichnisa v'yitziyahu v'loy lahamid sham be'moshe v'chafetzos man ruba. The chotzer is merely used to get in and out of your house. It's not made to start piling up junk. You know, we've all had neighbors who are pack rats and pile up junk, and you want to be polite, but sometimes, you know, it crosses a line, and you got to say, hey neighbor, maybe you want to cut your dandelions, or maybe you want to clean up and not let your garbage overflow onto my property, or maybe when you snow blow, don't blow all your snow into my driveway, just a little bit, right? So the normal way to use a chatzar is to use it to get in and out, put your packages out a little bit, but not to create your own warehouse there. The hilchach, the mothers pay most of greda, below binyan le'avachazah. Therefore, just leaving your behemoths there is not such a gross abuse of your typical use, and therefore it wouldn't be a chazak. The ba'amada kedi loy kapti should mizalzeh. Normally, neighbors won't have a problem if you leave stuff there. Ad shah unless you left stuff all over my driveway. Normally, I don't care if you're parked in my driveway, if you have stuff on my driveway, if you get a delivery on my driveway. But if I'm pulling in, I'll say, no, I'm trying to pull in. You want to move your stuff to the side. Am I revealing too much about myself? This is just any similarity that you think this has with reality is your figment of your imagination. I'm just picking these as random examples, right? Lekapli shotim zel ad shosh yitztachu lo'isamokum. Zokter Ashbam, and when you need the space, then yakpidu, I'll say, excuse me, could you move your things? In other words, the fact that I had my animals in the property for 3 years is not a chazak, because it's not the norm for the shutif to be makbid on me leaving my animals there. So, but I'm a kapti. If I put up a wall in the chotzer to section off part of it for my exclusive use, there, of course, the shutif would be makbid, and therefore there's a chazaka. Since the neighbor didn't say anything when you built that wall, surely you built that wall with their permission, and therefore it is a chazaka. Gewaltig. Sagt der Heilige Gemara weiter. Fragt the Gemara, are you telling me there's no kapida whatsoever when someone just parks in your chutzner? If your shutuf just parks in your chutzner? But Tanan Bilurt, Hashutfim Shanadru Hana Zamizeh. These are 2 neighbors, and they were not, well, they're actually, I should take that back. This specific case is talking about 2 people who are shutfim in a field. But we're comparing the 2. We're comparing the field to the bias in the chutzner. So 2 shutfim that own a field together, they each have a right to walk in it, but shenodru hana zamizeh. They made an isra hana. So Reuben and Shimon are partners. So Reuben says, I ask you, Shimon, to have an iota of hana from me. Or you could say, I ask for myself to have an iota of hana from you. The loch is asurin likanis l'chotzer. Neither one of these two shoftim are allowed to walk into the chotzer because they'll be violating this or hana. But the problem is, if there's no hakpada for a shotif to walk on your part, well, then that should not be a violation of an isra hana. Zok tehelig rashbam asurin likanis l'chotzer. If they didn't split it up, this half is mine exclusively, and that half is yours exclusively, rather we're still sharing, that means each person is going to be walking in his friend's chelik because it's a shared property, and therefore they'll be over because you're having enough from your friend. You're standing in his property. It's only a problem if a person typically is makbid on people standing there. If someone doesn't care if somebody walks there, that's not called having a no from it. So clearly, from the fact that the Mishnah says it's osir, it's a raya that a person is makbid on merely hamada. The Mishnah lekapti muter lamed b'chotzer chaveiroi ava pisha muder mimenu hana. Why? The kiven de lekabed b'amida. It's as if haray hifker is a chotzer l'chol. The dal said for everybody. I don't own it. You know why? Because I'm not makbid. I'm makbid. I allow anybody to walk there. So that is our question. Our Mishnah seems to indicate that Amida people are not makbid on, but the Mishnah clearly says they must be makbid on because otherwise, how would it be usher for two shutfim that were noider and off from each other to go into the chutz? Amar of Nachman, Amar Rabba Baravua. You're right. In the front, there is hakpada. You know where all of this occurred, building this wall for your animals? That was in the area behind the houses. Behind the houses, the Bahamoda Kedi Loikapti. Behind the houses, people don't care if their shutfim infringe a little bit on their backyard. But I wouldn't want you to put up a fence in my backyard. So therefore, our Mishnah is explained in the backyard. Rav Papa said, no. Idi v'idi b'chatzar shut. In both cases, we're talking about the chatzar shut. However, when we said that they're makbid or not makbid, it doesn't mean 100% of the population. Some people don't want you to put up fences in. I'm sorry, we're talking before, but some people don't want you to park your animals in their property, and some people don't care. So therefore, you have to look at the case of Mamana different from the case of Isser. Gabi Mamana, when we're talking about over here, was it incumbent upon me to make a macha, and therefore, since I didn't make a macha for 3 years, you have a rye that you bought it. So Gabi Mamana lakula, I could say, you know why I wasn't moicha? Because I didn't care. I'm from those people who don't care. So therefore, the fact that I wasn't moicha for 3 years doesn't prove anything. It doesn't prove that you bought it from me. If you want to claim that you used it for 3 years and I wasn't moicha, and I'm the type of guy that should have been moicha, well, then you'll have to prove that I'm the type of guy that wouldn't be moicha. That would have been moicha. Otherwise, I can claim I wasn't moicha because I didn't care, and therefore you do not have a chazak. But Gabi Asura L'chumra. Now you have a question. There's another maid. You don't know if I'm makbid or not. You can't take a chance and walk into my property because you might be being over an Ishav Layachel. So therefore, the Metzias is the same. Some are makbid, some aren't. Based on that, by Mamana, you would say that it's not a chazaka because of a mochi mechavel of a raya, and you have to prove that I would be makbid and I had to have been moicha. But by Isura, you have to be careful. Just in case I am makbid, you don't want to be over Layachel Devar. So that was Rav Papa's teretz, how it's not a stira from the case of a shutim shenadu to our Mishnah. Ravina Amar different chilek. La'olam loy kapti. No, nobody's makbid. Nobody's makbid. V'hamani, we're going according to Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Lezer holds even the things that people aren't makbid on, that's still something that will be usher for Nadarim. The Tanya Rabbi Lezer Omer afilu vitur usher b'mudar no. If I have something that I'm not makbid on, like in our case, I'm not makbid that people should walk into the chotzer, and therefore it's not a chazak. But I'm not makbid, I don't care. That's still considered enough mine that if you're not allowed to have a no from me, you wouldn't be allowed to walk in. Viter also Bermuda no. Even things that people are makbid on, when it comes to Isra no, you're not even allowed to have that type of a no from me. Okay, Kavaltik. Omar Rav Yochanan Mishum Rabbana. Now we're getting into the sugya of Rav Bana. Rav Bana is shared a halacha with us that's relevant to our sugya, and what is that? B'koil shutfin ma'akvid zeh. Any type of use that my neighbor in my chotzer wants to do that I don't like, I have a right to say no. You can't do that in the chotzer. I don't allow you to do that. The only thing that I cannot prevent my neighbor from using the chotzer for is chutz min hakavisa. If he wants, if his wife or his household help is a woman wants to wash the clothing, not in the public by the river, but in tznius, in the privacy of their chotzer, there the other shutuf does not have a right to prevent that. Why? She'ein darkan shal b'nai Yisrael lehisbazois ala kvitza. It's not appropriate for b'nai Yisrael who are tznuos to go into the river, which means they have to lift up their dresses and roll up their sleeves. That's not tzniistic. That they won't do in public. But in the privacy of their chotzer, they will do it. It's funny because what privacy is in the chotzer if there's a neighbor who can see what you're doing? But I guess that's still much better than being out in the public.
Every neighbor could be except for...
No, I could stop you from doing any type of activity in the chotzer. Let's say you want to store your behemoths in the chotzer. I have right to say, please, I can't handle that. But if you want to wash, if your wife wants to do the laundry in the chotzer, there I can't say, no, you can't. Because of tznius, they have a right to do their laundry in the chotzer. Okay. The oitzem einov mer oispera. The pasuk in Yeshaya, I believe, talks about a whole bunch of things that Yidden, Erlich Yidden, don't do. It says, "Haylech tzedakos." He speaks. He goes in the way of tzedakah. V'doiver meisharim, and he speaks properly. Moyes bevetza mashakos. He's disgusted by stolen money. Noyer kapov mitmoich b'shoichad. He pulls his hand away from dealing with shoichad. Oitem oznoi mishmoya domim. He plugs his ears from hearing bad things. And the oitem einov, and he closes his eyes. Merosh bara. So the Gemara darshans this pasuk. Now that we're in the sugi of tznius, the Gemara decides to darshan this pasuk. And what do we learn from here? This is someone who's makbid not to look at the women when they're not so tzniistic, when they are washing the clothing. Why in the world are you even in the laundromat? If you don't have to walk by the riverbed where they're doing laundry, you could have went through a different route. So then you're not a tzaddik for not looking. Rashahu, you're a rasha for even walking in that area. You shouldn't be there at all. Find a different route. Anida legadaka achrita. No. This drasha is just related to the subject that we learned. But we're now no longer talking about a property. Now we're just talking about generally people being careful with their eyes. And if there's no way to get to your destination other than passing by this area where the women are washing, well then anusu. You're an einus if you look by mistake because you have to go there. Zog to Gemara, I'll tell you where the Torah is praising somebody who watches his eyes. In fact, he had no choice. He had to go this way. Because if he didn't have to go this way, then he's a rasha for going this way. But even though he's an einus because he's walking and he's going to see something that might not be appropriate, he has to force himself to look away, not to look. So let's have a quick peek in the Rashbam. Lemenis nafshe, lahatois einov l'tzaracher. He's got to walk. He's got to see where he's going. But if he sees a woman, he has to quickly look the other way. That's why the Torah is praising him, the honest nafshei chassid. If, even though he needs to look around, but he forces himself to look the other way, that is someone who's a righteous, who's a chassid. Gewaltig. Boy minei. Now, whenever you are buying something on Amazon and you find a product that you like and you buy it, right away, the program Amazon says other products from this same vendor that you might be interested in, or on eBay. So the Gemara does the same thing. If you think that, what's the guy's name who owns it? Who? Bezos. You think Jeff Bezos started this? This is a first Gemara. We bring a memra from Rabbana, and then the Gemara says, okay, if we're talking about Rabbana, let me show you his whole Amazon store. Let me show you what other Torah he has to sell. So, boy, minei Rabbi Yochanan Rabbana. The Rabbi Yochanan asked the Shaila of Rabbana. Chaluk shel Talmud Chacham. The jacket of a Talmud Chacham or the shirt of a Talmud Chacham, Ketzad, how is the appropriate way for a Talmud Chacham to dress? Zok the Gemara, Kol she'ein b'sarai nira mitachta. So I don't think it's talking about how sheer the fabric is. The Rashbam says it's talking about the length of it. It should go all the way down so that he shouldn't have any part of his legs revealed. Actually, for this, the word exposed would be more appropriate. So let's see what it says here. It says, Nira mitachtav, she'arach should be long at pisas ragloi, down to his feet, shelo yira kishayelech yachad. If he's ever walking barefoot, you shouldn't see his feet. That is the appropriate length of a jacket of a Talmud Chacham. Okay, talis shel Talmud Chacham ketzad. Now the talis is what goes over the chaluk. So kol shein chalukoi nira mitachtav tefach. It should come almost all the way down to the bottom of his chaluk. It should be within a tefach. So the most that should be exposed from his chaluk should be a tefach. Shulchan shel Talmud Chacham ketzad. How should the table of a Talmud Chacham be set? So just to visualize what this table is, it's not a table that people sit all the way around. The people sat only on one side of the table, and the waiter, the shamish, would come from the other side of the table and serve. So shnei shlishi gedil, 2/3 of the table towards the eater, towards the Talmud Chacham sitting and eating, should have a tablecloth. Ushlish kaloi, and the third part of the table towards the waiters, there you should not have a tablecloth. The olav ka'arais, that's where the pot should go. The yerek and the vegetables, and the tabatay mibachutz. The tables used to have a big loop on it because the tabletop would be stored away and hung up on a hook somewhere, so there would always be a loop. The loop should be on the outside, so it shouldn't get in the way of the eater. Let's have a look at why a table should be set in that fashion. Zakter Rashbam shnei shlishi gedil shlish kaloi shnei shlishi roicha v'shulchan. 2/3 of the width of the table towards the inside. Mechusa b'mapa is covered over with a tablecloth. Now, you think that the purpose of a tablecloth is that it should look nice. If you try doing what the Rashbam is about to describe with your tablecloth, you're going to have to find another house to live in. Mitzara oichlin, towards the side of the people who are eating. You know what the tablecloth is there for? L'kaneich haspien, to wipe your face. You try wiping your face with the tablecloth, it's not going to end well. The law says allows a pass, and to put the bread on the table. Ushlisha chitzoin, the third closest to the outside, megula, is left uncovered. Laniach olav kairos v'koisos, they could create dirt. Shelo yalach lechu hamapa. You don't want the tablecloth to get dirty. So don't put a cup on it because there might be a stain on the tablecloth. Just use it to blow your nose, and then everything will be nice and sanitary and clean. This is how people did things in those days. I don't know how to explain it. The Istim Afarshi, Shalish Kaloi, is be'emtza, meaning the tablecloth should cover the perimeter of the table all the way around, and in dead center, it should remain uncovered. Shnei Shlishi Gedil, the Hanyu Mapa mi b'chutz, umi b'fnim, kol saviv ha'shulchan, ve'emtza megula. And the center of the tablecloth would not have cloth there, it would be open. Gedil Korea Mapa al Shem Sharuga Why do we refer to the tablecloth as gadil? Because gadil and tasalacha, it's a woven fabric. The loshen tzachu, it's a nice lotion to use. The tava should be on the outside, so you shouldn't hurt yourself, bang yourself up. We learned that the hook for the tabletop should be towards the eaters, towards the inside. It all depends if there's little children sitting eating with you. If there are, they can hurt themselves on the loop, and then it should be on the outside. But if there's no little children, you can put the loop on the inside. There's a question where the loop should be, even if there's no children. If you have a shamus, you should put it on the inside, because the shamus serving might not notice it and bang into it and hurt himself. But if there's no shamus, put it on the outside. If the shamus is serving by day, even though the loop is sticking out on his side, he'll see it. He won't bang into it. It won't hurt himself. But if it's at night, he might not know it's there. He can hurt himself. So put it on the inside. What about the tablecloth, the table setting of an amoritz? That looks more like a bonfire, which means all of the pots are around the whole perimeter of the table. And I guess when you're eating, you're leaning over the pots. It gets very messy. And there's pots all around, and the fire's on the inside. Just like on the Madur, the pots are around and the fire's in the middle. Here too, the tablecloth and the lechem would be in the middle, and the kaya shaviv, so you're sort of leaning over. It's more. There's food all over the place, not just on one side, and you're leaning over the food. The whole thing gets messy. How does the bed of a Talmid Chacham look? Neat and clean. Things that you leave under a bed develop a ruach ra. So therefore, you're not supposed to keep anything under your bed. So the bed of a Talmid Chacham is called shein tachtel ella sandalim b'moisachama. Sandals are the type of footwear they would wear in the summer. So that's all you would find under the Talmid Chacham's bed. Umin olin b'moisachshamim. In the winter, where people wore much heavier shoes, then those would be found under the bed of a Talmid Chacham in the winter. But for Shalom Haaretz, the underneath Hamarish's bed, you'll find everything and anything. And that means he's not makbid on Ruach Ra. And the Gemara is going to continue tomorrow with different stories of Rav Bana. Baruch Hashem, even though I came late, we were zeicha to finish Daf Nun Zayin. Tomorrow we're going to have Noach. We're going to relax a little bit. The Noch tomorrow. This is Nun Ches. And it's also it's all I got ish. Okay, but it's an easy but. Everyone should have a wonderfully awesome day.
So it's a pretty big but.